Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Arbi Annahar. I'm from class C, and today's explanation on this occasion, firstly, I want to say thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala who give me healthy and everything. So today, I can do the presentation and explanation about the paper. And don't forget salawat and salam. Hopefully, this serve to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, friends, in this occasion, I wanna start to explain about this the paper. The title is Podcasting and Effective Tools for Learning for Honing Language Student Pronunciation, written by Lara Duquette and Lara Romick, the University of South Carolina. Okay, for the introduction, this paper reports on an investigation of podcasting as a tool for honing pronunciation skills in intermediate language learning. We examine the effect of using podcasts to improve pronunciation in second language learning and how students' attitude changed toward pronunciation over the semester. A total of 20 2020 students in intermediate German and French courses made 5 scripted pronunciation recordings throughout the semester. After the pronunciation recording, students produced 3 extemporaneous podcasts. Students also completed the pre and post survey based on Eliot's in 1995. Pronunciation attitude inventory to issues their perspective regarding pronunciation. Student pronunciation extemporaneous recordings and survey were analyzed to explore change over the semester. That is for an abstract, and then continue to introduction. For introduction, as advanced by this special issue on teaching pronunciation, foreign language, although if ill, teachers are often challenged by the ongoing debate on how to teach pronunciation across proficiency levels. While some teachers feel there is often not enough class time to practice pronunciation, including intonation or prosody, and then others may not enjoy nor know how to teach pronunciation. Although I believe that students simply find it boring, but furthermore, some teachers may be reluctant to teach pronunciation due to the lack of training in phonetics. So, teaching pronunciation is a class specific to pronunciation, phonology, and phonetics may seem more feasible than in typical language classroom. However, these types of classes normally only occur in the upper levels, so students in beginning language classes could be deprived of systematic pronunciation training until late in their language learning careers. Okay, maybe that's all from introduction, and then we will continue to review of related literature. Okay, many studies have investigated global non-native pronunciation, assess what factors affect pronunciation, help improve pronunciation, and then as a Grammy in 2006, studies have shown that training can also help to improve students' pronunciation. He said that after 2 weeks of training on specific sound, found that the average error rate dropped from 2 weeks of training on specific sound. and in delayed post-test, which illustrates that focus instruction can lead to phonological change. But in another study, members of an experimental group improved significantly after listening to negative speakers and comparing their own speech with the NS. In the Spanish phonetic class, students who revise explicit phonetics instruction improve their pronunciation on specific features. The finding of the studies show that rising of second language learners awareness of the important role of intonation system is an attainable aim. So language L2 learners awareness of the important role of intonation system that can ultimately help to improve students' pronunciation. In addition to comprehension, prosody represents another important aspect of pronunciation. Prosody is defined as a pattern in individual word of stress, pitch, and tone and rhythm, an intonation pattern of longer utterance. So, as Mandra and Daring in 1995 found, the presence of the strong accent does not necessarily hide their intelligibility. And in their study, some speakers will rate as happily accept even though the listener understood everything. And the researchers attribute this afferent construction contradiction to the effect of inaccurate prosody. Okay, for the next material, that is about research method. Okay, for the research method on this paper, there are several types. The first is uh, this is a participant material, and then scripted procedure, and then the last is result. The first, I want to explain about participant. The participant in this study consisted of 12 students learning German and 10 learners of French, all L1 of American English, enrolled at the University of the United States during one academic semester. Students were encouraged in intermediate levels language classes fourth semester and were between the age of uh, 18 and 22 years old. 12 of 5 or 4 in French and 8 in German of the students had been to French or German speaking countries for varying amount of time, but none more than a summer. Participation in the project was completed over a 16-week period, and participants were selected based on the confidence sample. In other words, intake groups of students enrolled in these intermediate courses were asked to provide consent to participate in this project. And then for the material, in the previous studies on pronunciation, the irritation techniques have included repetition based on NS models. As Almond and Samuels in 1973 shows that in order to access and the differences between script and extemporaneous tests, we close to enjoy two different types to elicitation techniques. Now, student recorded a total of 8 podcasts over the course of the semester. At the beginning of the project, students received about 16 60 to 60 to 90 minutes of technical training on how to create and upload podcasts to their blogs. Our podcasts that were contextualized around the theme of the study abroad. Okay, for the script pronunciation podcast, the student recorded 5 scripted pronunciation podcasts. Please script 1, 2, 3, and pause between 2 and 3 minutes in length. Each relate to study abroad. The text used in the pre and post podcast were identical, listed about 3 minutes, and were first-hand account of a French of German student beginning a study abroad experience in the US. The tests for podcast 1, 2, and 3 were chosen to prepare students for the contextualized podcast test and read by a NS. Students listened to the podcast and then made their recording, which were posted as podcasts to personal blog they had created to the German or French course. And then for extemporaneous podcast, students recorded a total of 3 extemporaneous podcasts during the semester. Text that students listened to complete during the pronunciation podcast serve as a model for students to use of each of these podcasts. For more complete, you can see in table one for the for a description of each test. And then we continue to pronunciation attitude inventory. The pre-test PIA survey based on Elliot's in 1995 consists of 12 archetype questions that assess student attitudes towards pronunciation and non-background information questions. See the post-test PAI survey consists of the same 20 Likert types question and 8 additional Likert types question and 6 open-ended question specific to students' attitudes toward the podcasting project. The 14 additional items on the post inventory assess student like the like and dislike with regard to the project, what they found helpful to improve their pronunciation and any suggestion change. Okay, the next for procedure, after making their own recording, students were required to listen to classmates, extemporaneous podcasts, and post comment on their content. The extemporaneous podcasts were graded by the instructor of each class using the rubric that took into account content, coherency, and organization, pronunciation and fluency, accuracy, and creativity and impact on the listener. For the script pronunciation podcast, an assistant listened to each student's recorded podcast, provide a written assessment with detailed feedback to the student, and occasionally left comment to the podcast on student's blog. All students maintain an individual blog where each podcast was posted. The blogs and podcasts were therefore available for anyone on the internet visit, provides the timeline and detail for this task. Okay, for procedure, step 1, pre-pronunciation survey and pre-test listening and scripted pronunciation. Step 3, scripted pronunciation pause 1 and listen and pronounce. And step 4, extemporaneous, extemporaneous intercultural story misunderstanding that occurred either in US or abroad and what you learn from it. Okay, for step 5, scripted pronunciation podcast 2, listen and pronounce. And step 6, extend pronounce podcast, interview someone who has studied abroad in a French or German speaking country and discuss stereotypes she and he had of people in that country before she or he when the stereotypes people had of him her as an American. That is 3 until 5 minutes. Script for the step 7, script the pronunciation podcast 3, listen and pronounce. And then step 8, extend pronounce podcast 3, visit a French or German town in which you would be instead interested in studying abroad. Then create a radio advertisement, sweep university classes for the city. Remember that you are trying to encourage your classmates to visit you here. So make it sound interesting. That is about 3 until 4 minutes. And the step 9, post test listening, and then the last step 10, post pronunciation survey atau PAI. Okay, we will continue to finding. The first is data analysis, and then the last is comprehensibility ratings. For data analysis, for the purpose of analysis, students podcast add per student. We are download and store it on a computer of OCD. They were assigned random numbers and then judged by two letters in each language. For a total of 4 a judge on the study, one NS of the target language, one NNS. The NNS test or about an expense low profile for each language or letters where graduate student in German or French. For comprehensibility ratings, among the German comprehensibility ratings, there were no significant differences. The difference between the first and second extemporary nouns recording E approached but did not reach significance, where 44% of the students improved in comprehensibility in the second extemporary nouns segment. Among the French comprehensibility ratings, there was one significant difference where I think where 99% of the students receive higher comprehensibility ratings on the second script sample comparing the first script sample. Okay, for the result and conclusion, data analysis revealed that student pronunciation did not significantly improve in regard to accentedness or comprehensibility. Perhaps because the 6 weeks among treatment was too short to foster significant improvement, and there was no in-class pronunciation practice. The podcast project, however, was perceived, perceived positively by students, and they appreciate the feedback given for each script recording and enjoy opportunities for creativity during extemporaneous podcast. Future studies might seek to define more specific guidelines or example how teacher input may be adapted to the use of podcast as a companion 10 classroom instruction. Okay, maybe that's all for me for my presentation. This is about podcast an effect student student pronunciation. Okay, thank you for your nice attention, and then I'm sorry for my mistake. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.